Another year has rolled by, so let's take a look at the most played Steam Deck games of 2024 by the number of hours played on the Steam Deck as provided by Valve. All footage you're going to see is captured on the Steam Deck OLED for reference of how these games perform, and the stats you're going to see are from our own SDG Companion App on the iOS and Android app stores. Check it out in the link below. As always, let us know in the comments what you are playing and what your most played game on deck was last year. Let's dive in at number 20. Down 2 places from last year, the endless battle between the high heavens and the burning hells rages on as chaos threatens to consume Sanctuary. With ceaseless demons to slaughter, countless abilities to master, nightmarish dungeons and legendary loot, the vast open world brings promise of adventure and devastation. At number 19, down 3 places, is Slay the Spire. Choose your cards wisely and discover hundreds of cards to add to your deck with each attempt at climbing the spire. Running perfectly at 60 frames per second, you're not going to have any issues on this one, especially as it only caps out at 7 watts. You're going to get a good 5 to 8 hours gameplay with this one. Dropping 5 places to 18 is The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. Trained from early childhood and mutated to gain superhuman skills, strength and reflexes, witches are a counterbalance to the monster-infested world in which they live. Depending on the area, you'll get up to 60 frames per second on this, but don't expect more than 30 to 40 in the outside world, especially galloping around, but still runs great on deck. At number 17 is the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim Special Edition, down 11 places. Battle ancient dragons like you've never seen. As Dragonborn, learn their secrets and harness their power for yourself. Not quite a solid 60 frames per second, especially in dragon fights, but you're going to get a decent 40 to 50 all the way through on the highest graphic settings. New entry for this year of Deep Rock Galactic Survivor at 16. Kill bugs, upgrade your gear, and delve ever deeper into the lethal caves of Hoxes. Collect and assemble a devastating array of guns and unleash hell upon wave after wave of aliens within the cave walls. Not quite managing 90 on the OLED deck here, but you will get 60 even with the hordes closing in, and you can see why this is so addictive on the Steam Deck. Another new entry for this year at number 15 of HELLDIVERS 2. And you can see why with up to 150,000 daily active players. Enlist in the Helldivers and join the fight for freedom across a hostile galaxy in a fast, frantic and ferocious third-person shooter. With friends with lots of bugs, you are going to struggle with 30 frames per second, and that's only going to get worse in the harder difficulties. That doesn't stop you having fun on the Steam Deck. At 14, down 9 places, is Red Dead Redemption 2. Still one of the most gorgeous games that you can play on the Steam Deck. Arthur Morgan and the Vandalin gang are outlaws on the run. With federal agents and the best bounty hunters in the nation amassing on their heels, the gang must rob, steal and fight their way across the rugged heartland of America in order to survive. 30 to 40 frames per second with gorgeous graphics on this one on the deck, but don't expect more than a couple of hours gameplay, so keep that power handy. At number 13, a disappointment, dropping 9 places as we can no longer play online on the Steam Deck, but story mode still runs just fine. When a young street hustler, a retired bank robber and a psychopath find themselves mixed up in the criminal underworld, the government and entertainment industry, they must work together to pull off crazy heists. Running at a decent 60 plus frames per second in story mode, it is sad that we can't play online, but still great to play on the deck. Another new entry for this year, in at number 12, is Hades 2. As the immortal princess of the underworld, you'll explore a bigger, deeper, mythic world, vanquishing the forces of the Titan of Time with the full might of Olympus behind you. In a sweeping story that continuously unfolds through your every setback and accomplishment. You will get up to 120 frames per second on this one if you do put it on an external displays. Otherwise, you're going to get a solid 90 frames per second on the OLED and 60 on the LCD, pushing only around 11 watts, so expect a good 3 to 6 hours gameplay depending on where you're playing. Dropping 4 places to number 11 is Hogwarts Legacy. Still keeping its popularity, but still only managing around 40 to 50 frames per second in the outside world. And not to mention running around Hogwarts as well. Hogwarts Legacy is an open world action RPG set in the world first introduced in the Harry Potter books. Embark on a journey through familiar and new locations as you explore and discover magical beasts, customize your character, craft potions, master spellcrafting, and become the wizard you want to be. Forever up for debate around whether it's an indie game or not, up 4 places to number 10 is Dave the Diver. Explore and unravel the mysteries of the depths of the blue hole by day and run a successful exotic sushi restaurant by night. Although it does look like it has a bit of stutter here, it does play at a very smooth 60 frames per second on both the LCD and the OLED deck, and pushing only around 10 watts, you're going to get a good 4 to 6 hours gameplay as well. Dropping 3 places but staying in the top 10 just about is Cyberpunk 2077 at number 9. Although the Phantom Liberty expansion with Dogtown doesn't run as good as it could do, getting 30 to 50 frames per second with gorgeous graphics around the main city is definitely a fantastic way to play on the deck. Cyberpunk 2077 is an open world action adventure RPG set in Night City, where you play as a cyberpunk mercenary wrapped up in a do or die fight for survival. At number 8, up 4 places, is the original Hades. As the immortal prince of the underworld, you'll wield the powers and mythic weapons of Olympus to break free from the clutches of the god of death himself, while growing stronger and unraveling more of the story with each unique escape attempt. As you would expect, this also runs at a solid 60 on the LCD and 90 on the OLED, as it's just like Hades 2, except the original, pushing only around 15 watts. You're definitely going to have a great time with this one. At number 7, up 8 places, is Fallout 4, always doing fantastically well in the monthly charts. As the sole survivor of Vault 111, you will enter a world destroyed by nuclear war. Every second is a fight for survival and every choice is yours. On the OLED deck, we are pushing almost 23 watts, meaning only around 2.5 hours gameplay, but we are getting a decent 40 to 60 frames per second depending on the environment, with medium to high graphics. Still doing fantastically well in the charts at number 6 is Vampire Survivors, dropping 3 places from last year. Survive as long as you can until death inevitably puts an end to your struggles. Gather gold in every run to buy upgrades and help the next survivor. Pushing only around 8 watts even with mass hordes closing in on your position, you can expect a good 6 to 8 hours gameplay on the OLED with this one, and around 4 hours on the LCD. Making a huge comeback and doing fantastically well across the entire year is Palworld, being a new entry for this year. To survive, you must tread carefully and make difficult choices, even if that means eating your own pals when the time comes. This will definitely get your Pokemon and FPS and adventure fix all in one, but don't expect more than 30 frames per second, especially in heavier monster areas, but it still looks decent on the deck and at least it is playable. Always surprising that people are still playing this so much is Baldur's Gate 3 in at number 4, but it is dropping a few places. Abducted, infected, lost. You're turning into a monster, but the corruption inside you is also giving you power. That power may help you to survive, but there is definitely a price to pay. And I'm not just talking about the one of your FPS in Act 3 around the city, dipping into the 20s. Our highest new entry in at number 3 of Balatro. No surprises that this one was going to make it into the most played. A poker roguelike where you combine valid poker hands with unique joker cards in order to create varied synergies and builds. Earn enough chips to beat the devious blinds and see how long you can last. Playing at a solid 120 frames per second, so 60 on the LCD or 90 on the OLED, and pushing only 8 watts, you can see why Balatro quite easily racks up the time on deck. A year later, still at number 2 overall though, is Stardew Valley. You've inherited your grandfather's old farm plot. Armed with hand-me-down tools and a few coins, you set out to begin your new life. Although this got a huge update earlier this year, you can see that this is still one of the most played games on Steam, as well as obviously the Steam Deck. Pushing only 6 watts on the OLED deck, you are going to get a good 8 hours plus easy, and it is capped at 60 frames per second, which of course it holds solid. A year later though, and the #1 played game on Steam Deck is still Elden Ring. Rise tarnished and be guided by grace to brandish the power of the Elden Ring and become an Elden Lord in a vast world where the joy of discovering unknown and overwhelming threats awaits you. Although the DLC does hit a little bit harder, you can play Elden Ring with a decent 30 to 40 frames per second all the way through, even with the epic boss fights, as they mostly push 60. That's the most played games on Steam Deck for 2024. What do you think will be your most played game this year? Be sure to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all things Steam Deck. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.